My aunt took my late grandma's crystal collection and snapped. You wouldn't even appreciate it. But when I found an old letter from Grandma stating it was meant for me, my aunt's jaw dropped because I never expected my family to turn on me like this. I thought we were all on the same page. I thought we all loved Grandma. I thought we all respected her wishes. But apparently, when money and valuable things get involved, people start to show their true colors. And let me tell you, what I found out about my aunt made me sick to my stomach. My grandma, Irene, was my favorite person in the world. She had this way of making you feel special, like you mattered, like you were worth listening to. She was a collector, not of stamps or coins, but of crystals. Not just the cheap ones you find at flea markets either. I'm talking about rare, high-quality crystals, some of which had been in our family for generations. Some were gifts from my late grandfather, some she had bought from her travels, and some were passed down from her own mother. I spent hours as a kid admiring them, running my fingers over the smooth, cool surfaces, watching how the light hit them just right. Grandma taught me the name of every single one, told me their histories, their meanings. She used to say they each carried a story, and it was up to the right person to understand it. And that person was me. Not Margaret. Margaret is my aunt, my mother's older sister, and quite possibly the most selfish person I have ever met. She's the kind of person who always has to be in control. It's not enough for her to have what she wants, she has to make sure you don't have it first. And if something holds value, she suddenly cares about it, even if she never did before. She was like that with my mom growing up. If my mom got a new toy, Margaret needed it more. If my mom had a special dress, Margaret suddenly found a way to get one too, but bigger, better. And if my mom got any kind of attention from their parents, Margaret threw a fit until the focus was on her again. So, in hindsight, I should have expected this. I should have known she would pull something. But I guess I was naive. When Grandma passed away, I was devastated. She had always been so full of life, so energetic, that it was hard to believe she was gone. Her death didn't feel real. It felt like any moment she would walk through the door, her hands full of grocery bags, talking about a new tea she had just discovered. But she didn't. And the house felt emptier than I ever imagined it could. 2 weeks after the funeral, the family gathered at the lawyer's office for the will reading. Grandma had always been very clear about how she wanted her things divided. Her house was to be sold, and the money evenly split among her children. Her jewelry was to go to her daughters and granddaughters. And the crystal collection? That was supposed to go to me. Except, when the will was read, there was no mention of the crystals. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the lawyer had overlooked it. Maybe Grandma had written it down somewhere else. But then I noticed something. Margaret wasn't surprised. She wasn't looking around in confusion like everyone else. She was just sitting there, staring ahead, acting completely unfazed. I turned to her. "Where are Grandma's crystals?" She didn't even blink. "Oh," she said in that smug, dismissive tone she always used. "I took them." It was so casual, so matter-of-fact, that for a second, I didn't understand what she was saying. "You took them?" Margaret shrugged. "You wouldn't even appreciate them." I felt my entire body go numb. I wouldn't appreciate them? Me? The person who spent every holiday, every weekend, every free afternoon sitting with Grandma, learning about them? The person who loved them as much as she did? The person she had promised them to? She kept talking. "I mean, you don't even have a proper place to put them." I did have a place to put them. Grandma had helped me set up a display cabinet in my apartment months before she passed. She had told me how excited she was for me to take them home, to keep them safe. And Margaret knew that. She knew. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears. They were meant for me. Margaret just smiled. Well, they weren't in the will. And that was it. That was the moment I realized she had planned this. She had gone into Grandma's house before the will was even read, before anything was legally divided, and she had stolen them. And now, she was acting like it was no big deal. Like it was her decision to make. She got up, patted me on the shoulder like I was some stupid child, and walked out. I sat there in shock. My mom was furious but also exhausted. She had dealt with Margaret's crap her whole life and knew that trying to fight her was like hitting a brick wall. "It's not worth it," she told me later. "She's always been like this. Just let it go." But I couldn't. I didn't just want those crystals because they were valuable. I wanted them because they were mine. They were a part of Grandma. A part of us. And Margaret had no right to them. For weeks, I stewed in my anger, not knowing what to do. I felt powerless. Margaret was wealthy, connected, and manipulative. If I tried to take legal action, she would drag it out and make it as painful as possible. She knew she had taken something from me. She just didn't care. And then, something happened. Something that changed everything. I went back to Grandma's house one last time before it was officially sold. I wasn't expecting to find anything. I just wanted to sit in her room, to feel close to her again. That's when I saw the old bookshelf. It was mostly empty, but one book was still sitting there, forgotten. One of her old cookbooks. The kind she used when she wanted to bake something from scratch. I don't know what made me pick it up. Maybe I was looking for a handwritten note in the margins. Maybe I just wanted to hold something that smelled like her. But when I opened the cover, something fell out. An envelope. My name was on it. I felt my heart stop. I picked it up, hands shaking, and ripped it open. Inside was a letter. And as I read it, I felt the rage boil inside me like never before. Grandma had written it specifically for me. She had known. She had known Margaret might try something. And she had left me a message, just in case. If you are reading this, then I am no longer here. I want you to know that my crystal collection has always belonged to you. You were the only one who ever saw them the way I did. The only one who ever cared. I told Margaret this, but I know how she is. If she tries to take them, don't let her. I want you to have them. This is my wish, and I hope you will honor it. I read it over and over, my hands shaking. It was proof. It was in her handwriting, dated before she died. Margaret had known exactly what she was doing. And now? Now, I had everything I needed to make sure she regretted every second of it. I sat there, staring at the letter, my hands trembling. The air in the empty house felt heavy, thick, like even the walls knew the weight of what I had just found. It wasn't just proof, it was everything. It was Grandma's voice, speaking to me from beyond the grave. And Margaret had lied. She had stolen from me, knowing full well that those crystals were never meant for her. I clenched my jaw, my nails digging into the paper. Margaret thought she won. She thought I was just going to roll over and take it. She thought she had all the power. She had no idea what was coming. I took the letter, made multiple copies, and sent one straight to the family lawyer. I attached a note. Margaret took the crystals before the will was read. Grandma left this letter saying they were meant for me. Let me know what can be done. Then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my uncle. Grandma's only son and the executor of her estate. He had seen the letter, and he was pissed. She stole them before the will was even read, he said, his voice sharp. That's theft. That's fraud. And if she sold any of them, it's going to get a lot worse for her. That's when it hit me. I had assumed Margaret just wanted the crystals. That she was being selfish, like always. But what if it was more than that? What if she had already sold them? The thought made my stomach twist. I did a deep dive into Margaret's social media. She wasn't the type to sell things online, but she was the type to show off. And sure enough, there they were, dozens of photos of my grandmother's collection, proudly displayed in her giant house. She had turned them into decorations. But something was off. In one of the photos, there were gaps in the display. Not all the crystals were there. I scrolled, my pulse pounding. Then I found it. A high-end auction site, one that specialized in rare gems and antiques. And there, listed under a seller with a username suspiciously similar to Margaret's email handle, were 3 of Grandma's crystals. I saw red. She wasn't just keeping them, she was making a profit off them. I screenshotted everything and sent it to my uncle and the lawyer. Within hours, legal action was set in motion. A demand letter was sent, requiring Margaret to return everything. The lawyer made it clear, if any pieces were missing or already sold, she would be forced to pay back the full value, or worse. She ignored it. Margaret acted like nothing was happening. She didn't respond to the lawyer. She didn't return calls. She thought if she stayed silent, it would just go away. But I wasn't letting this go. So I turned to her biggest weakness, her reputation. Margaret was obsessed with appearances. She was always trying to show off her perfect life, her fancy house, her expensive things. She went to charity events, pretended to be generous, acted like she was some high society woman who gave back to the community. She had no idea what was coming. I started talking. Not online, no, that would have been too easy to ignore. I made phone calls. I told family members what she had done. I sent them copies of the letter. I let it slip to her fancy social circle. Oh, did you hear? Margaret stole from her own mother's estate. Yeah, she took the crystal collection before the will was even read. And now she's selling them off for profit. Can you believe that? People talk. And in Margaret's world, reputation was everything. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. First, her friends started whispering. The same people she tried to impress were suddenly keeping their distance. Then, one of the auction sites she used was flagged for selling stolen goods. The listing was removed, and the lawyer was notified. And then, finally, Margaret snapped. She showed up at my mother's house, unannounced, furious. "You had no right," she hissed at me, standing in the doorway, her face red with anger. I crossed my arms. "No right? You stole from me. You lied." She let out a short, sharp laugh, the kind of laugh people make when they realize they're losing. "They weren't in the will." I pulled out the letter. Her face strained of color. "You knew," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You knew they were meant for me. Grandma told you. And you stole them anyway." For a second, just a second, I thought I saw panic flicker across her face. But Margaret was Margaret, and she recovered fast. "You wouldn't have even, don't." I cut her off. "Don't you dare say I wouldn't have appreciated them. You don't even know what they mean. You just wanted them because they were valuable. And now you're selling them." Her jaw tightened. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I stared at her. "You're a thief." Her lips pressed together, and for the first time, she had no comeback. I didn't back down. "Give them back. All of them. And I want proof you haven't sold any more." She tried to bargain. First, she offered to give back some of them. Then, she offered money instead. I refused. I wanted what was mine. When she realized I wasn't budging, she did what all cowards do. She played the victim. "You're turning the family against me," she spat. "Over some rocks." I laughed in her face. "They're not just rocks. They were Grandma's. And you knew that." She stormed out. But this wasn't over. The lawyer was already in motion. If she didn't return every single piece, she was going to be facing a legal battle she couldn't win. And considering the damage to her precious reputation, I had a feeling she was going to crack sooner rather than later. I was ready. Because this time, I wasn't letting her win. Margaret didn't give up easily. She had spent her entire life getting away with things like this. She wasn't about to admit defeat, especially not to me. The moment she stormed out of my mom's house, I knew she wasn't going to return the crystals without a fight. I expected more legal nonsense. Maybe even a weak attempt at playing the victim with the rest of the family. What I didn't expect was how far she was willing to go to keep what wasn't hers. A week passed, and Margaret went silent. No calls. No emails. No response to the lawyer's demand letter. It wasn't like her. Margaret loved drama, as long as she was the one controlling it. The silence was wrong. Then I found out why. My uncle, the executor of the estate, called me late one night. His voice was tense. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Margaret filed a police report." I sat up straight. "What?" "She's claiming the crystals were stolen from her house." I swear, my brain short-circuited. She had reported Grandma's crystals, my inheritance, the ones she had already stolen from me, as if she were the victim. And it wasn't just an empty claim. She had actually called the police, filed a formal report, and even told them she had a suspect. Me. I felt my stomach drop. Margaret was trying to frame me for theft. The next morning, I got a knock on my door. 2 officers stood outside. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm. I hadn't done anything wrong, and I wasn't about to let Margaret scare me. "We received a report about some missing antiques," one of them said. "We just need to ask a few questions." I nodded. "Come in." I already knew what they were going to ask. I had my answers ready. Margaret claimed that someone had broken into her house and taken a portion of the crystals. She even had fake evidence, a broken window, which I later found out she probably shattered herself, and some missing items from her own collection to make it look believable. But here's where she messed up. I had proof of everything. I had the lawyer's letter, the copies of Grandma's note, and, most importantly, screenshots of Margaret's online listings where she had already started selling the collection. I pulled out everything. "She's lying," I told the officers. "She stole the crystals before the will was read. They were meant for me. She even tried to sell them online." One of the officers skimmed through the screenshots. His eyebrows raised. "These listings? These are the same items she reported stolen?" "Yup," I said. "She's not a victim. She's covering her tracks." They left after that. No arrest. No charges. Just a simple, "We'll look into this." That was enough. A few days later, I got another call from my uncle. This time, he was furious. "She actually tried to pin this on you," he said. "She told the whole family you were trying to destroy her." "She's spiraling," I said. He let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, and it's about to get worse." Margaret had no idea that one of her so-called friends had already sold her out. Someone in her social circle had heard about the stolen crystals and tipped off a private collector who had unknowingly bought one of the pieces from her. That collector? They weren't thrilled to find out they had purchased stolen property. And they were willing to testify. With this new information, the lawyer had all the ammunition he needed to hit Margaret with legal action. But then, something even wilder happened. I got a call from an unknown number. I normally wouldn't answer, but I had a feeling. I picked up. Silence. Then a voice I didn't expect. It was Margaret's husband. "Listen," he said, his voice low. "I know we don't talk. But I need to tell you something." My heart pounded. "What?" He let out a breath. "I found more. More than what she sold. She's hiding some of the crystals in a storage unit." I sat there stunned. "Why are you telling me this?" A pause. Then, quietly, "Because I'm divorcing her." I nearly dropped my phone. Margaret's own husband was turning against her. I couldn't even process it. But he wasn't done. "She's been lying about more than just the crystals," he said. "I don't know how much you know, but she's got other debts. Big ones. She's in deeper than she's letting on." I gripped the phone tighter. "She needs money," he continued. "Fast. That's why she stole the crystals. That's why she's selling them. She's trying to fix something before it comes out." My blood ran cold. Margaret wasn't just being greedy. She wasn't just being a control freak. She was desperate. And desperate people? They made mistakes. I had her now. It was only a matter of time before she lost everything. Margaret was running out of time, and she knew it. Her silence wasn't just avoidance anymore, it was panic. The storage unit revelation was the final piece of the puzzle. She had hidden part of the collection, knowing she couldn't sell everything at once without drawing suspicion. The only question left was why. What had she done that was so bad she was willing to commit fraud and frame me to cover it up? I didn't have to wait long for the answer. A week later, my uncle, who had been handling the estate matters, called me again, his voice dripping with disbelief. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Margaret took out a second mortgage on her house years ago and never told anyone." I almost dropped my phone. "She's drowning in debt," he continued. "She used the money for some investments that went bad. She was trying to fix it quietly, but the bank's coming after her. If she doesn't pay up, she's going to lose everything." It all made sense now. The theft. The lies. The desperation. Margaret wasn't just greedy, she was terrified. And that was when I knew how this was going to end. Margaret didn't just need money. She needed to save face. She needed to keep up the illusion that she was in control. That she had everything together. So, I gave her one last chance. I called her. She actually answered, probably thinking I had more dirt on her. "I know about the second mortgage," I said without hesitation. Silence. Then, a sharp intake of breath. "I don't know what you're talking about." I laughed. "Cut the crap, Margaret. I know you're in deep. I know why you took the crystals. You thought you could sell them off piece by piece, fix your mess without anyone noticing. But now everyone knows. The lawyer knows. The family knows. And your husband? He's divorcing you." She let out a breath that sounded almost like a sob. Then, the Margaret I knew came back in full force. "This is your fault," she spat. "You turned everyone against me. You humiliated me. Over some stupid rocks." I felt my jaw tighten. "Don't," I said. "Don't call them that. You and I both know this was never about the crystals. This was about you taking what wasn't yours because you thought you could get away with it." She let out a bitter laugh. "And what? You think you've won? You think you're better than me?" "No," I said, my voice calm. "But I know that Grandma would be ashamed of you." Silence. A long, deep silence. And for the first time, I wondered if I had actually hurt her. If, deep down, she felt even a shred of guilt. Then, she hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. The legal battle was swift. Margaret had no choice but to return everything, the crystals, the ones she had hidden, and the money for the ones she had already sold. The private collector came forward, confirming she had been trying to pass off family heirlooms as her own. She had to pay back thousands, which she couldn't afford. The lawyer made it clear, if she didn't comply, she'd be facing real legal consequences. She caved. The fallout was brutal. Margaret's husband filed for divorce. The bank started foreclosure proceedings on her home. Her social circle, her perfect, elite little group, cut her off completely. She went from being the woman who had everything to being the woman who lost it all. And the worst part? She did it to herself. At the next family gathering, her name wasn't even mentioned. It was like she had disappeared. A few months later, my mom got a text from an unknown number. It was Margaret. Are you happy now? You ruined me. Mom just stared at it for a long time before putting her phone down. She didn't reply. And me? I still have Grandma's crystals. They sit in the display case she helped me set up, just like she wanted. Sometimes, I run my fingers over them, remembering the stories she told me, the way her voice softened when she spoke about them. I should feel victorious. But sometimes, I wonder if Grandma knew this would happen. If she knew that greed and pride would destroy Margaret. I wonder if Margaret ever really cared about anything other than herself. I wonder if she'll ever realize that she didn't just lose a collection of crystals. She lost her family. She lost herself. And maybe, that's the kind of revenge that hurts the most.